Hey, hi, hello, my friends.
Hey. Hey. How y'all doing?
Happy Tuesday, or whatever time that you are watching this. And I do apologize, my shirt is extremely wrinkled. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, you can see there. But I love this color. I haven't started wearing pink until this year, and my grandma used to really love me in pink, so that makes me happy. Also, this is the first episode of Cageless, which, if I can give you some context, I lost a cord to my microphone, and then I bought another microphone, and then I needed another cord. So that is just a little bit of background why it has taken me so long, amongst other reasons, to get this episode out. As I said, this is my first episode of Cageless being engaged. I'm that girl. I'd love to, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the ring. It is an extremely unique ring that you will have to see for yourself. I'm giving you a nice close-up, waiting for the camera to focus. There we go. Even though I have a microphone in my hand, I should not be singing. I always said that, even though I've always loved to do musical theater and perform, that God knew I wouldn't be able to handle being a singer because my ego would be too big. So we're all happy that that didn't happen. But a lot of life has happened in the past few months. I turned 30 years old. I got engaged. 2026 happened. And I think I started this podcast when I was 25. The idea started when I was 25 or 26. And that was 5 years ago, which is wild. I've been creating much longer than that. If you've been around, then you know that my backstory in creation started when I was very young and is just going to, I hope, keep continuing. This past year, after I turned 30, I realized that my younger self and a lot of her dreams that have been dormant, I wanted to give a go again. So I have been writing a screenplay with a really good friend of mine for the past few years that we are completing and submitting to festivals, which is really exciting. I studied film. That's what my college degree is in. And I worked a lot in the entertainment industry, even as a student. So it's not really like a new career path. It's just kind of a second wind at what I've always really loved doing. But living abroad has not been the easiest when it comes to networking and creating a community of other filmmakers, entertainers, musicians, but that's just kind of the territory. I recently saw this photo. I'm going to put it right here. And it reminded me, after a conversation with my friend that I had in Texas a few weeks ago, that when you're young, it can really feel like you've put yourself on a timeline of what success can mean. And that's actually just kind of sabotaging and not really nice for the ether and the universe, because I have come to learn that some of my favorite creative projects couldn't exist until I met someone else, or until I heard a certain song or saw a certain movie or went through a certain circumstance in my life. And I don't think it's really fair to regret situations or be angry that you didn't get somewhere sooner, because you just have to forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know and not experiencing what you hadn't experienced yet. And you can't really play God on the grand scheme of life's timeline. Something else that I'm learning a lot about is what creative community is, and how a lot of us can feel really alone, even though we have access to thousands and millions of people on our phones. That doesn't really mean that you have access to their souls or their ideas, and you have to mix two different colors together to get a different color. You can't just exist in isolation. And I have learned, as a certified amnivert that it's much easier for me to stay in and easier for me to sit with my research and sit with my ideas. It's easier for all of us to do that, I think. Well, actually, maybe not for you Enneagram 3s and 8s out there. You might be a little bit more extroverted than the rest of us. That's actually not fair to say, because I don't think that you're allowed to diagnose anyone with an Enneagram number or assign a type of, are you an introvert or an extrovert or amnivert to a certain kind of number. So that wasn't fair of me to say. But the biggest challenge for a lot of creatives, at least in 2026 for me, is that creating in isolation is boring. And creating in general does bring a lot of fulfillment, even if it's not good, or even if it's not educational or extremely entertaining. You should create because you enjoy creating, not for a paycheck or applause or any kind of timeline meter of success. With that being said, planning 2 weddings. I'm planning 2 weddings because my fiance is French and I am American, and we would love to honor both cultures in both places. So we are planning 2 different ceremonies, one in France and one in Texas. There is a lot of timelines that I have had to learn to agree to. And one of them being finding my wedding dress was extremely stressful. I don't know if any other brides from the past few years are watching this, but there's so much pressure to be unique and pressure to feel and look your very, very best on this one specific day, which goes against every single belief that I have and value that I hold dear, that one specific day or one specific moment is the most important in your life. The most exciting, interesting, altering moments in my life, I did not plan and wouldn't be able to plan if I tried. So kind of thinking of wedding planning as like just a production, you're planning a party for a bunch of people, which I've never been good at parties ever. I still don't think I'm very good at parties, but luckily my fiance is very good at that. And I am for sure a type B bride. I care a lot about being surrounded by people and them having fun. I'm not a huge aesthetics girl, like when it comes to the decorations and flowers and things like that. So hopefully it's just a very holy day. I pray that God blesses the day with love and community and joy and hopefully beauty, but that is not necessarily the most important thing to me. It's also really important that Copper, my dog, is with me. So I'm still working on the logistics of that, even though my dog is kind of perfect and extremely well behaved and very well traveled and very polite. I want him to feel happy and comfortable around people on the wedding days. I didn't even tell the story of how my fiance and I got engaged. It was extremely sweet, just to preface with that. We were in Texas visiting my family for my brother's wedding of October last year, so October 2025. We went out to one of my friend's lake houses. We were driving around, and it's really funny because he is not from Texas, so it's not customary to him to just like drive around on a Kubota or a four-wheeler and be like listening to country music. You have beers in the back. So he was like really, really enjoying that. And I could tell that he was like happy, but I didn't think much else of it. And my friends were like, oh, we should watch the sunset on this side of the lake. Let's, pull over here. And I was like, okay. And him and I start walking out to the dock of this lake. Can I be so real with you for 2 seconds? Sony, if you are watching this, I am not a camera person or an engineer in any way, shape, or form. But if my Sony camera doesn't stop overheating after 10 minutes of use, I'm going to lose it. I understand that there's a lot of mechanics behind this, but I was in the middle of telling a story. Okay, so anyway, stay tuned for my story. Let's proceed. we're walking out to this dock, right? And I very ironically had the thought of it would be really funny if someone did like a baby reveal out here because it's just very East Texas to do that. Or maybe like a proposal because like the sun was setting. That would be so cute. I turn around and my extremely French fiancé is on his knees, smiling so big. And he proposes to me very sweetly. And I am in utter shock because one, we just got to Texas and he had never met my dad before. And I knew that he wanted to ask my dad for my hand in marriage. We hadn't tried on or like I hadn't picked out any rings. I hadn't shown him. No, I take that back. We tried on some rings at Tiffany's, but like just for jokes because I didn't want a super simple ring like that. But like he didn't see my Pinterest board. He had no idea what ideas that I liked, but this ring is very special to him and his family. So because it's blue and it's the color of my eyes and I love sapphires. So that is the story behind the proposal, and the wedding planning is soon. We're getting married in August of this year in France, and then again, well, not again, but the ceremony is in November in Texas. We made the decision to have pretty big bridal parties. A lot of our friends and family are involved because relationships are the most important thing in our life. Yeah, turning 30, being engaged. I don't think I expected myself to be here. My mom even told me the other day that she was like, we didn't know if you would ever get married. You're just so independent and strong by yourself. And I do think that's true. I've kind of always considered myself a Joe March of sorts.
Women, they have minds. And they have souls as well as just hearts. And they've got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty. And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it.
But when you find someone or when God gives you someone that matches with you so well and your futures align and your values align and your love for our shared love for Jesus or whatever your shared love for, works, then it works. So we're really excited to start. I don't want to say start a new life together because we're already living life together every single day, and living with someone and loving someone and being in an intercultural relationship along with two different languages has been really enlightening and challenging and showed me parts of myself that I didn't know existed. I started reading this book by Saint Teresa of Avila. She was amongst the desert mothers and fathers. Anyone who is into theology and geeks out about stuff like that, you'll be familiar. But the book that I'm reading is called Interior Castles. She actually writes this book to her other sisters, so other nuns. I really love that it's distinctly towards other women. And essentially, she goes through the metaphor that your soul is like a castle. And when you are communing with God and communicating with God, there are different rooms in the castle of your soul. Excuse me. This is random. Something that I have learned is that like bodily functions, like sneezing or burping or whatever, is much more accepted in the United States than it is in France. I just accidentally had a little burp, so I do apologize. But I just think in general, the United States is much more open about being unapologetic. I guess that's the right way to put it. Oftentimes we're quite crass, generally. Like if you were to look at our president, you would see that he is the most outspoken person of all time. And I am by no means putting all of us Americans in the bucket of Donald Trump. In fact, I would never dare. French people are often overall extremely attuned to politeness and manners and external circumstances, making sure people are comfortable, at least when it comes to, like I said, bodily functions. When it comes to stating your opinion, French people do not care what you think or if you agree with them. In fact, I am listening to another book called Culture Maps, And the woman discusses, she's a cultural expert, and she discusses the differences in communication, especially in high context and low context cultures. So, for example, Americans who speak English are, I think, the lowest of the low context people, meaning that we are quite explicit and direct with everything that we say. I learned growing up that clarity is kindness, and that's what efficiency is just being extremely direct and clear. But you go to Japan, where it's extremely important to have nuance and be aware of the way that people say things, be aware of how they say it, their body language, etc. And France, I think, kind of falls somewhere in the middle, but that's been a really fun communication learning curve for both my fiance and I. Learning how to be in a relationship with anyone ever is an intimate and can be a challenging thing, especially if you want to keep getting better and keep growing and loving someone. But I love him so much, and he's so interested and invested in my culture, and I am the same with his. Obviously, I live here. Something that I have said in the past is your 20s aren't your prime, they're your primer. And when you turn 30, I think I'm a baby at the beginning of a new age in my life and a new season in my life. It's exciting and really, really scary because I have wrinkles in places I didn't have them before, which is fine. I'm all about women being able to age, and men too, however they so please. But I also have aches in my hips and my back, and I need specific amounts of sleep on a specific pillow now, which is a new type of thing for me. So getting older, I think that it's going to be fun. I am not scared. There's a phrase, one of the first phrases that I learned in French was "Je n'ai pas peur," which means I am not scared. So I'm not scared. There's a million Emilys in Paris, and there is a million American girls who come here to eat, pray, love, tell you the best coffee shop, the best vintage shop, taking super aesthetic pictures in the street. And I'm not that girl. I can't be that girl. You shouldn't try to be that girl if that's not who you are. And if it is who you are, I have the utmost respect for you, because I think that I repel aesthetically pleasing things. This is a $10 t-shirt from H&M, and it's what makes me happy. And if you love designer things, that's awesome too. But you should never try to push yourself into a box that you weren't meant to fit in anyway. You don't need the latest trends. You don't need the latest fashion. You don't need the latest innovation. You need to be yourself. The happiest that you're going to be is not going to be when you have a silver medal or a certain number in your bank account or even a ring on your finger. You are going to be happiest when you are being who you are, and you are not aiming to impress anyone but maybe your younger self. They're also a really harsh critic, so be careful with what they think. Love you guys. This episode took me a long time because Sony and their equipment is a little bit, getting a little bit hot. But I guess that's okay, because I guess that means that I'm hot too. So love you guys. Said that twice. Like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube, and comment what should we talk about next when it comes to creativity or aging, or even if you have questions about my wedding. I am not an expert. I'm not a wedding planner, but would be happy to share. Love you guys. That's the third time. Also, I have a really cute bracelet, a little cowboy hat. Can you see it? And a little turquoise pepper and a cross and a sun. And they're just things that I love. And I love you. That was the fourth time. Talk to you later.